welcome to the Final Bell, the official Geelong Cats podcast. It is great to have you with us for another week. We are proudly presented by GMHBA, the official health insurance partner of the Geelong Cats. And the reason why I am a little bit up and about is because of a great game of footy, but also because, as I am every single week, I'm joined by Meg McDonald. Great to see you, Meg.
Hey, Lingy, good to see you too. How good? You still going?
Wow.
Saturday night?
Wow.
48 hours ago? No, well, that's bad. That's way more than that.
A little bit more than that, but it feels like it's just finished because I'm still buzzing from it. I worked Thursday night on radio, Friday night on radio. Those games didn't hit great heights, I'll be honest with you. I think everybody would agree with that. And then Saturday night, I sat on the couch at home and watched it with my kids. And wow, did that game hit some heights. What a game of football. We're going to get into it. Nigel Lappin, the head of development at the Cats, is going to join us as well. It'll be great to have a chat with him. We'll get to some listener questions. Did you do a memo this week amongst the craziness?
Amongst the craziness, look, at some point you've got to leave them wanting more, Lee. So we don't have one this week. I will say it's because I had a very fancy MCC invite this weekend. So I was on... I was in the function room, had a lovely meal, and then had to be somewhat respectable in where I watched it amongst the movers and the shakers. So I didn't get the phone out and voice note the game, but oh boy, because I was getting congratulated for my how reserved I was being, considering some of the commentary that was happening nearby. So,
was there a bit happening?
There was a gentleman who was, when you're just like, they can't hear you, mate. They can't hear you.
Yep, you got to breathe deeply through it sometimes. I was all set that if you'd done your memo with about a minute 30 to go, you were the reason, there was going to be some trouble. I actually
went the other way. I actually went the other way. When the Collingwood, so I was in the crowd and the Collingwood people started, so I had two thoughts along the way that I didn't so much as voice. I was there with my mum. I thought to my mum, if we win, we'll go in the rooms and say hi. Didn't say that.
Good.
And then when all the Collingwood fans started leaving, when we were 3 goals up, I leant over to the gentleman in front. I said, don't be doing that. I mean, it's Collingwood. Why would you leave it? You might miss the greatest comeback ever. I was like reverse psychology jinxing it.
Yeah, but very nearly happened. Very nearly happened. Of course, all of our listeners will have watched the game now, so they don't need me to explain how incredible it was. But that point when we were 17 points up, the Dangerfield handball, we're going to get to Paddy in just a sec, to Jack Bowes, kicks the goal, 17 points. Feeling pretty good. Feeling pretty
very good. Feeling, and at every point, I don't know about you, at every point, at every break, when we went 3 goals up early, then quarter time, half time, 3/4 time, I'm like, I'll take this. I don't mind what happens from here. I'll take this. We've been competitive. We've turned some form around. This is good. And then it was just like getting spoiled in the last quarter.
Yeah, it was a remarkable last quarter. We spoke with Paddy Dangerfield on radio the next day on Sunday, and we talked through the last minute or so, minute and a half, and quite rightly picked some things that needed to be better and needed to improve and things like that, rather than,
lauding him and fawning over him.
Well, we were, in the end, got fanboying and just embarrassed the hell out of him. But he was phenomenal. But as a team, a couple of things to fix in that last minute or two. But it's funny you say about throughout the game. At half time, I thought Collingwood were much better. They destroyed us at clearances. I thought they looked incredibly dangerous. The ball was flying around. We were okay, but not super sharp. And then I thought, but we're not that far back.
I know. They never went over 20 points, did it?
No, I almost hit half time thinking, gee, that's okay. That's a decent result on the scoreboard, because I thought we were outplayed in the first half.
I couldn't agree more. And you're looking around thinking, well, there is upside. Danger's not being as influential as he has been in previous weeks. Jeremy could get involved more. There were a number of things that could of upside, essentially, that and some of them came to fruition. Yeah,
well, let's talk Dangerfield. We're 10 coaches' votes again. I don't think that was in dispute. The third quarter got rolling, and certainly clearance-wise, we flipped that around, and Danger was involved in some things. But the last quarter is what stood out to me. If you want to just pick a time of the game for Paddy Dangerfield, that last quarter, his sheer influence on the game was just enormous.
Wasn't it? And I'm loving watching his teammates at the moment. I think they recognise what's happening. Every time this happens in a game, I'm sure they've had no shortage of respect for one of the greats of the game across the course of his career. But they must be looking at him this year. He's probably even looking in the mirror and being like, wow, I'm doing it. Yeah. I am dominating. It's one thing to think I'd like to be able to. I remember Max Holmes said he's trying to learn from danger about how to assert his influence on the game. It's one thing to have that thought, but to have the capacity to do it is something else.
And we've spoken about this in previous podcasts, the fact that he's saving petrol. He spoke on radio the next day. He's a power athlete.
Yeah.
He's played midfield for his whole career, despite being a power athlete more so than an aerobic athlete. Now he doesn't have to use as much petrol in that aerobic side of his game playing midfield. So it's like he's getting to the last quarters or those important moments, and the petrol tank is still 3/4 full. There's still plenty to burn there, as opposed to being near empty and just not quite having it. And his influence is huge. I love the fact that too. So Bailey Smith was very good again, but Paddy is being really well supported by a variety of players.
Yeah.
Tom Atkins in probably the first 6 weeks of the year was huge. I thought Sean Manners' last 2 or 3 weeks has been incredible, and I thought again on Saturday night, Manor was the one who got them going. To the naked eye, I did think it was holding the ball, I must admit, but in the end, great decision by the umpire because it slipped low. Other fans can't come in. It is a trip. But when it immediately happened, I thought it was holding the footy. You?
And it was so loud. It was so loud you probably can't hear there's no doubt he couldn't have heard his teammates. But I'm like, you must have known something was happening. It was the volume went through the roof. Look, a few things went our way, a few things went their way. But we'll take it.
I think Blitz might think through the whole. I'm just going to hold on to the ball while I'm cuddling the other ruckman.
What I was saying was, I was like, they've gone so far forward, and we've gone, but that if Bailey Smith, like, there are a few players just there. If we had just booted it forward, but I mean, I'm not going to critique Mark Blitzhouse. What a player!
Talk about a good game.
And apparently, I didn't speak to him yesterday. Apparently, no voice left and you can see that on the ground. I think I mentioned it last week. He is so demanding of his teammates at the moment. I think probably because behind the ball we're missing a few of our senior players, but he is just, he's setting it. The bar's going even higher. Yeah,
he's truly the on-field leader, isn't he? The on-field coach. And we talk so often, again, for the opposition. Scott Pendlebury's out there for Collingwood. He's no longer the captain of the team, but he is an on-field coach for Collingwood. We've seen a variety of players across the league do it so well. Mark Blitzhouse is one of our on-field coaches and just setting things up. And it's funny to hear you say that the voice is gone because it's, we talk about fatigued muscles of calves and things like that. A voice is a muscle that is so, I know the voice is not a muscle, but you get what I mean, is such an important weapon and thing that you need to have on the field that it becomes fatigued and needs to recover through the week.
Against that volume. But I mentioned behind the ball, I really loved Mark O'Connor, particularly in that first half. I thought he was, to go and stand, he's playing at fullback essentially, not where he always lines up. I thought his intercept mark game was really strong early. And both teams defensively, if you're going to have success in this competition at the moment, you have to be defensively sound, and it was difficult to break through theirs. And I felt like to try and defend, we had to get a lot of numbers back, and then we tried to go forward, and we couldn't break that barrier because of it. But when it became a contest, we were strong.
Very good. Obviously, one of the down points tonight, Ray Stanley, we lose. And we think Hammy.
I think Hammy. Yeah, I don't know what the update is.
Check out the medical report for that one. Lawson Humphries as well will enter concussion protocols. Hopefully, good news. Speaking of concussion protocols, is Gryan will be now back available.
Hopefully, I think we'll see how he's going,
Check that one out. Obviously, as part of those protocols, just need to make sure all those boxes are ticked. Tom Stewart, also keep an eye on the health update there. That's always the best place because Meg and I are kind of guessing, but educated guessing, I hope.
Yeah, no, exactly. Sorry, guys. I feel like I have an obligation to put my ear to the ground a bit more than I do when I turn up on a Tuesday morning. Not sure what's happening. But I'm sure that whoever comes in or whatever the team's makeup, as has been for the first 8 weeks, we'll be right.
Yeah, I think that's been the really exciting thing. I entered, sitting down to watch the game on Saturday night, thought, Collingwood are in great form.
Yeah.
They're a really good team, and we are minus Tom Stewart, which always worries me because I just love Stewie, as you do as well. And I think, hang on.
He would have been great late in that game. He would have been...
maybe this is a little far for us to then get the win minus Stewart and Gryan makes it a monster win.
Can I ask, as is your area of expertise, what did you think when we went out for the first bounce and Oshin was on Nick?
Yeah, no, I loved it. I'm often asked the question about the run with rolls, the tagging. When do you do it? When do you not do it? I am not so old school that I go, you got to tag and you got to tag every game and he doesn't get a touch. It doesn't matter what you do. There is team framework to work within. You need a player who has good decision making to go both ways. It needs to be the right person for the right matchup. And then you also need to look at the opposition and you need to ask yourself the question, how influential is this opposition player for everything that opposition team does? Do they bring 6 or 7 other players into the game regularly and lift the entire ceiling of a group of players? And if that's the case, then yes, go after that. Try and shut that player down and take away his influence. Nick Dacos fits in that category. He is so special. I know opposition fans probably get sick of all of us in the media talking about Nick Dacos. There is a reason why.
She's unbelievable.
He is so special about what he does and the dynamic nature of his ball movement, his ball use, his run, everything, his decision making. So shut him down. Shut him down if you can.
Could craft a player to go with him, I think, he's up there from a physical point of view. His speed's unbelievable. His strength is unbelievable.
His competitiveness.
Yeah. He's not, I'm sure his game sense and skill will continue to develop at a rate of knots, but his conscientiousness is there already. Like he'll be able to stick to task. And 2 questions for you on it. Well, actually, a statement is that on our point around flexibility and being able to play multiple positions and prioritise things, when we went out to set up for that first bounce, I thought this is a team where you can play in multiple positions. So to a supporter's eye, thinking, we're a bit, our availability in this particular area of the ground doesn't seem great this week. Our backline, for example, Kolajasny, Stewart, Henry aren't available. But then Max Holmes plays off the back line for a portion of the game because Osh is in the middle, and our ability to sort of restructure with the players that we have available, who you look at a team and you think, you are our best 22 or 23, and we will, to a large extent, manipulate the field so that you are the ones that are playing. I don't know if you see it that way.
Yep. No, I see it that way, and it's a really good point you make. The ability to not have to change personnel.
Yep.
Go, okay, I'm going to bring that player in order to, because I need to play someone somewhere. It's within the team that we've got, we can move people around. I thought the move of Max Holmes to halfback was a great one anyway, because Max has been good, solid, good, in through the middle of the ground. He hasn't quite hit his peak form yet. At halfback, he's a little more freed up. I think playing with the game in front of him a little bit. He got moving, he got running, got his ball use was all there. He can use that to recalibrate back to then going through the midfield
and get that clearance
again.
And she kicks that set shot.
So it works really well. It's a great point.
Circling back just to one question on the Nick Dacos. What would you have done when Nick goes that centre bounce?
Last centre bounce?
What would you have done?
What would I have done?
Yeah. For listeners, I'm sure you know, but we're saying Nick Dacos went and didn't set up for a traditional centre bounce. He sort of created the space
15, 20 metres away.
Yeah, at least. It almost looked like he was going to fall forward.
Yeah, and it was so that they were competing with a lower number.
Yeah.
In the middle, with a little bit more space for them to work in. Great tactic.
Yeah.
It's what I would have done. He was so far away. Would have been
half the distance.
Half the distance. Yeah. However, you got to read that like lightning, because if a Collingwood player breaks out and you are in no man's land, the handball goes over the top to Nick.
Disaster. Yeah. I know.
So I think it would be more you halve the distance so that if it's you could take away the threat of a forward hit from Darcy Cameron, which would then maybe be able to shift one of your teammates just slightly around more, which means another area is covered. Yeah. So maybe, but that's all happening split second. You're probably thinking Nick Dacos is the one who's the threat right now, so I'll shut him down. No, we not. This is getting a little too picky, and Paddy acknowledged it on Sunday. The moment that we needed to be better at wasn't necessarily that centre bounce. The moment we needed to be better at was that long kick to the goal square that Brody Mychek marks. That's the moment where there was a moment.
There was a moment.
Yes. So you fix that. That centre bounce doesn't exist. Yeah. I'm not here to pot shot anyone, because you could see the fatigue. You could see, it dropped a little short, and it's caught everyone by surprise. Brody Mychek read it well, etc., etc., etc. But yeah, I look more at, could we have got another moment right without the scrambling last 20 seconds.
Yeah. All right, I think that's me done. Sorry, I just want to get into that game.
Not a problem at all. We do need to take a break because Nigel Lappin is about to join us. Just quickly, the VFL had a bye, and a little correction on last week from producer Jake. Jake Kolodjasny did play against Carlton, but had limited minutes the week before. The VFL will play this Sunday, the 11th of May, against the Giants from 11:35 a.m. That makes it a curtain raiser. Yeah, I like that. Fantastic. So
I just had Aaron from the VFL program downstairs in the cafe say hi and say if I could give a shout out to Aaron Black for all his work in the VFL program, developing the players, then I will. So we'll find out if Blackie listens to the pod.
We love that. The VFLW unfortunately went down to Williamstown by 47 points. The VFLW play Sandringham on Saturday, the 10th of May, 11:05 a.m. at Deakin Uni. So again, the perfect weekend. Watch the VFLW on the Saturday, rock up, watch the VFL early on the Sunday.
Breakfast in bed beforehand for mum.
Breakfast in bed, maybe just bring mum along to the footy, a whole day of footy, and watch the Cats play 320 against the Giants. Also, remember that raffle's taking place, Meg.
Yes.
The Hoops raffle ends this Thursday.
Don't miss out on the chance to win your share of over $77,000 worth in prizes. Prizes included brand new 2025 Ford Everest and Ultimate Day with the Cats and more in all caps, exclamation mark. Tickets are only $10, so get yours now at raffle.geelongcats.com.au. Lingy, that is actually getting drawn on Friday. That's why it's closing Thursday, so... Do what you got to do.
Get in there. Grab your tickets. Let's take a break. Nigel Lappin's up next. Winning a three-peat isn't easy, but at GMHBA Health Insurance, that's exactly what we've done. By winning the 2024 CanStar Outstanding Value Hospital Cover in Victoria 3 years running.
GMHBA have been caring for the Geelong community since 1934 and are proud supporters of the mighty Geelong Cats. Join at gmhba.com.au.
Welcome back to the Final Bell. Great to have you with us. We are brought to you by GMHBA, and we are joined by a very special guest, as promised, Head of Development for the Cats, Nigel Lappin. Great to see you, Nige.
Thanks, Slingy. Good to be here with you both. Hi, Meg.
Hi, Nige.
So good to see you. Clearly doing a very, very good job too, Nige, given how much praise we have been heaping on a lot of the younger players. But I suppose as Head of Development, you aren't just looking at, automatically we think of, first to 4 year type guys, and that's where all the development is. I'm sure a lot of it is, but you're looking to develop everyone, I imagine, and doing a very good job of it, I must say, Nige.
Thanks, mate. We've got a really good crew, obviously, that I work with, firstly with the academy team, but also just all of the assistant coaches. As in any really good club, they invest in all the players, but we've always had a culture at Geelong that it's not only led by the coaches, it's led by the players, and we've got a very driven group that invest a lot of time in each other, so very thankful we've got all the help.
Now, Nige, I'm sure we'll individualise when it comes to players in a second, but what I'm interested in is something that we always praise the club for on this podcast, which is patience with the development and making sure that when the players do make their debut or they're regularly in the AFL team, that they're set up to succeed. I'm sure that's your remit. How do you go about preaching that to the playing group? Do you have to be explicit with with the patient side of things, or it's that culture you speak of?
Yeah, it's a little bit of everything. So obviously Scotty sets a great environment for the footy club. I know that's the way that he thinks. It's about long-term success over sort of short-term gains. So for us, we sort of get helped out a little bit because we've got a really strong senior list. It's a really difficult team to break into. So we've got, as I said before, we get some help for some players. I'll give you an example. So Paddy Rechko was asking us, about role compliance as opposed to sort of going and finding the footy. He's a really smart young player, so we're just sort of working through some of those challenges at the moment. And I was talking to him in the cafe, and Mitch Duncan and Max Holmes overheard, and Max Holmes actually come over and told him a story. He's like, well, in my first year at the footy club, I had 19 touches, did everything that the coaches wanted me to do, didn't think I necessarily played that well or to my capabilities. And Charlie Constable had 42 touches, and I was the one that got brought into the next week because that's what they were looking for. It wasn't as if Charlie didn't deserve a game. It was more that they were looking for this type of role to play in our system. So that's what we sort of preach, try and teach them the fundamentals of the game. So clearly the three phases of the game are critical to our game style. That's contest, defence and attack in that order. And it takes a while sometimes. As the best players that they are in the Coates League, they come into the AFL, they think that being the best player means going out and getting 30 touches, and it's clearly not the way, particularly when they're going to come into the team most likely and play a role.
It's so important to hear that, and thanks for sharing that, because when what you're telling them is then backed up by a direct example from one of the players they're modelling their games on, I'm sure that's incredibly powerful. How do you balance the I was about to say new generation, but I think it's been every generation, is that impatience to want to play straight away, and they're all talented players, and some of them are higher draft picks. If a year in they haven't played a heap of games and they've seen some of their peers in that same draft play lots of footy in another club, and with greater player movement across the league and everything like that, we have seen occasionally, I'm not getting the game there, so I'll look somewhere else. Balancing that and getting the players to understand, hey, trust in us, and it might not be as quick as some other clubs for the immediate impact, but your long-term success will be there.
Yeah, and again, this comes back down to us not pumping ourselves up as coaches. It's more the help that we get from the players around. So we've got perfect examples of that around our players. You look at the moment, there's someone who's having an unbelievable season and has, he's played unbelievably well since he's come into the team, someone like Tom Atkins. So, there's different pathways, and sometimes the harder pathway is the best pathway because you're learning unbelievable habits when you come along those pathways. You're learning really good life habits, not just football habits. So they're the things that we get our players to help us with, and they deserve as much credit as anyone. Not everyone's a Lawson Humphreys, but at the same time, Lawson himself, he was a mature ager when he come in. So we're very lucky we've got really good players around us to be able to do that. And that's what we talk about. It's about sustainable habits, things that are going to help you in your 200th game, not just your first game. So as I said, we use the players a lot. It's a really important part of our culture and our team.
You've mentioned a few of our favourites just in that response there. Yes. Tommy Atkins being possibly number one. I'm sure he's the perfect role model for these young players. But speaking of first to 4 years, can you touch on what you're seeing from Connor O'Sullivan? You mentioned Lawson, Ollie Dempsey's playing another great season. How are you seeing them contribute at AFL level at the moment?
Yeah, well, look, we're very happy with all of them. Connor, I'll touch on him really quickly. So last year, Connor is an amazing athlete. So he came in, was leading some of the running. He was only just behind Blitz with some of that stuff last year. But he's just got a fantastic attitude. He's got a huge work rate. The values that you want to see in a young guy, he's got enough confidence in himself and his ability as well. And he was challenged at VFL level. It was the first time he'd really played a full season against men, so that threw up its challenges. And the beauty about Connor is his self-awareness and self-assessment was second to none. He knew the areas that he needed to work on, and he got to work on that over the pre-season. He's going to mature even more as he gets bigger and stronger, and he's going to develop into one of the best key defenders in the comp, purely because he's got a huge work rate. He's got a great self-awareness. He's got great drive to be the best he can be, and he wants to play on the best players, and he wants big moments.
Fans often, Nige, think development. They think this perfect lineal development, and it's all, year one they'll do this, year two they'll do that. I want to ask you about Sam De Koning, because he... went like a rocket and played incredible football, important member of the premiership, everything like that, rising star runner-up. Last year was a tougher year for him as far as just finding exactly where he fitted within the group, and at different times wasn't quite in that best 22. Then he has another pre-season, and he comes into this year and is just playing what feels like really, really good football at the moment. So the development for a player like him who's still so young, but has then had to work through maybe a little bump to be able to come out the other side a better player for it.
Yeah, 100%. So the 23-24 season, if you look back at it, he had interruptions all the way through those 2 years, and there's reasons for it. But stuff that I was touching on before, I think is really important. In the long run, it's going to make him a better player as long as he embraces it in the right way, which he does. He's learned his lessons from all of that stuff, and now he's putting that stuff into practice. Like we preach this, everyone preaches this, but it's process-driven goals are the most important things for him. Am I getting out there and working on the parts of the game that I need enough? Am I working on the system? Do I know how I best play within the system? How do I support and help the teammates around me? And Sam's really gone to school on that stuff over the pre-season, and he's really building his form throughout the year. And over the last few games in particular, he's had some huge moments, and he should be confident with the way that he's going about it.
I'm interested as I'm sure we start to wrap up with you, Nige. You're both coaches, so you both coach different levels, and are parents of aspiring footballers.
Yep.
I'm sure there'd be many of those among our listenership, if I can call them a collective. How do you approach that differently? Like, how do you separate, your ability to coach and your want to develop people and just being a dad? I suppose I've got a vested interest because I know you've got some aspiring W players coming up.
Yeah, so for me, support your children first. That's the most important thing. Make sure they know that you love them and you'll be there to support them no matter what. And then really I think it's about the best coaches, in my opinion, have a really good ability to be able to read people, and because everybody is different in their own individual way. So with my daughters, I can coach them differently, or I can talk to them differently because I've got twin daughters that both love their footy, and they're both very different characters, and you need to talk to them differently. So for me, the best way to parent, or not parent, but to coach is always be asking lots of questions. So with my girls, I tend to ask, well, okay, what are you enjoying about your footy? What parts of your game? I always start with the positives, like what are the things that you feel like you're doing well? What are the strengths that you bring to the team? And they're going to be different for every individual, and really focus on them and say, well, okay, firstly, how do we make them even stronger? And then what are the areas that you might be coming away from a game and thinking that you'd like to potentially do some work on, or I like to call it areas for development. And then you just set a bit of a plan, but you really want to make them part of the plan rather than it be your plan as a parent. And if you do that, you get kids that are motivated for the right reasons. Their self-determination is sort of what we like to call it.
Can you assure me that they keep listening to you as
No.
they get a little bit older?
No, but if you do parent them that way, they will always come back. Yeah. It's good. It's actually because when we know what it's like. Like Meg, you're exactly the same. I've seen you play for years, and I know what you're like. It's so competitive. These people, and sometimes that's sort of bred in them. I know it will be with your kids, Lingy. It'd definitely be, and sometimes that might lead to a little bit of pig-headedness. But I'd sooner be teaching or trying to train someone who's got a bit of drive and pig-headedness over someone who's got no drive.
Good. I need to keep reminding myself that. And my wife, Dodsy, she's just started her coaching career at under-9 soccer.
She would be amazing.
I think she is amazing. She has noticed that perhaps the one kid in the soccer team who doesn't listen to her is her own son. But that'll be fun. Quickly, before we finish up with you, you've now been at the club. First year was 2009?
Yeah, so 16 is 17th.
Yeah, amazing.
Life member.
Yeah,
very lucky.
Fantastic, mate. You're doing an amazing job and continue to do so. Just your favourite over that whole time, Nige? Come on.
Well, clearly Cameron Lee.
Definitely not. How annoying was I in those early days of your formative coaching years?
No, definitely not annoying. It's amazing. Like sometimes, I'm sorry to pump you up here, but you get the odd player every now and then. They're just unconditional with the way that they respect their coaches, and they try and live the values of the club. And that was definitely Cameron Ling. There was no more worthy of being a captain for those reasons. That's why everyone looked up to you and everyone followed you. You weren't always necessarily the most skilled player, but the thing that I always loved about Cam, which hopefully you can try and teach in all your kids, is just that competitiveness and that hard work and that will. But more than that, just the care for each other. That was the joy of coaching you.
Thank you, Nigel. I'm glad you came on now. Thank you, mate. We better let you
that one up.
We better let you go. You've got a meeting to get to, a big game to prepare for again this Sunday against the GWS Giants. But it is so good to have those insights about what goes into the development. You know, we hear the word development, we think one thing, but there is so much more to it. So really appreciate you sharing with us.
No problems at all. Always good to catch up with you two.
On you, Nigel.
Thanks.
Thanks, Nigel. Great to have Nigel Lappin with us, the head of development of the Cats. He, as he said there, started in 2009, assistant coach. He's had multiple roles. He plays an important role at the footy club.
And he's so generous. He's generous with his time then, but anyone who comes across him in the footy department can sound him out for some development. Essentially, he's very generous with our program. No wonder the boys are succeeding.
And still fit as a fiddle as well, amazingly. Let's take a quick break. We're going to get to some listener questions next. Winning a three-peat isn't easy, but at GMHBA Health Insurance, that's exactly what we've done. By winning the 2024 CanStar Outstanding Value Hospital cover in Victoria 3 years running.
GMHBA have been caring for the Geelong community since 1934 and are proud supporters of the mighty Geelong Cats. Join at gmhba.com.au.
Welcome back to The Final Bell, brought to you by GMHBA. All right, let's dive into some of these fan questions, Meg. I like this one from Lockie first up. Tom Atkins, AA chances, All-Australian.
I'm cynical, so I'm going to say minimal. Yours? I mean, still averaging over 10 tackles. It's a joke.
Yeah, he's been incredible. It's so hard. I mean, I sat on that panel for 12 years. The midfield is, when you get down to it, it is so hard to break into that. And
sorry, you go.
No, there's one or two, I suppose, who right now sit in there ahead of him very clearly. But he's given himself a shot, at least. If let's
start with Kaji chances, because that's what I would love to see.
Okay, that's a great point. Yeah,
I would love to see that.
To this point of the season,
he'd be up there. But I've got an AA question with you for Paddy, because Paddy's been unbelievable. Yeah. How do you balance just outrageous games, 10-vote games, someone who is just consistently 8 out of 10?
Yeah,
not that Paddy's been fantastic every game, but when it comes to AA,
that's a really good point. So in my eyes and our eyes as a panel, the All-Australian is the elite of the elite. It's the way to reward the players who've had the best seasons in those positions. Yeah. The Brownlow is kind of a bit of a midfielder's award, so the All-Australian is the one that we make sure you really acknowledge it. Kevin Bartlett once said, he sat on it for a long, long time, when you're discussing, let's say small forwards, which was a point of his particular focus, given how good he was as a rover and a small forward. And we'd often talk about, he's been really solid. He's had a solid year. He's had some important moments, things like that. We'd be discussing it. And KB would sit there and go, he's kicked 20 goals for the year.
Yeah.
He's chased and tackled a bit. Good on him.
Yeah.
However, that's not all Australian.
He
said, give me one who's kicked 50, had X amount of goal assists and created absolute havoc and and opposition have to spend the entire week preparing for him. That's the person I want in an All-Australian team, not somebody who's just been solid. And it often makes you think, you go, okay, we're trying to reward the very, very best of the best. Does that answer your question? Reasonably?
Yeah, I think Danger's in with a shot.
As far as impact goes, I think he's in KB's lot there. Jessica's got, will Ollie Dempsey have a new car by the end of the year for Mark of the Year? It was a good one.
It was a good one. I think he's going to, I think the risk for him is when you make it look too easy.
Yeah.
He's beautiful. You need some drama. Landings. Shout out to Grant, who introduced himself on Saturday night as well. I know Lingy doesn't feel obliged to say everyone who said they listen to the pod whenever he comes on. I do. Hi, Grant.
It's probably because when...
That's Ollie's dad, everyone.
Probably because when people say they listen to the pod about
No,
me,
that's not.
they tell me that they want me to
that's
shut
not
the hell up
true.
and let Meg talk more.
That's not true.
Sorry,
yes. Do you think yes?
He doesn't have it yet.
He doesn't have it yet. I
doesn't
agree.
have it yet. Jazzalee, can we celebrate our list depth for beating the Pies? I hope we kind of did that a bit in segment
50
1.
minutes of that, hopefully.
Yeah, that was a particular theme, wasn't it? And we've seen it. Debutantes, we've seen. Yeah. So it's
well said, Jazzalee. We agree.
Very good, Matt. This relates to something we did discuss in segment 1 as well. What is the best role for Osheen going forward? Does a terrific job on Nick Dacos. That's a particular role. We've seen him play as a small back occasionally. What do you reckon? Where do you reckon he settles? Or is it his flexibility, which means he doesn't settle in one set position?
Well, that's what we've said is the hallmark of our team, right? So that as a standing answer, hopefully multiple positions, but I'd love to see him stay in the middle, not always as a negating force, but as his footy expands as a mid of his own with his speed and his power.
Yeah, I like that too. This one as well, I haven't got a name here, apologies. Was that Mark O'Connor's best game? I've seen him play some very good games,
Played
Mark.
some great games. I think his intercept game early was fantastic. I'm sure he would have liked to have better moments at the end, as Danger sounds like he spoke to.
Yeah.
He's pretty important,
He's important, Mark, isn't he? You know what I've noticed about him this year in particular, and he's probably been this way anyway, he seems stronger and surer overhead with his marking than he's ever been. There's a couple of times where it's gone to him, and not just Saturday night, other games, where it's like, oh, hang on, that ball's hung up in the air a little bit. This is going to be spoiled, and he's just bang, grabs it.
I also love that he knows he's like, the team says, I have to take that kick.
Yeah.
I'm kicking it. He's not being like, oh, no, now I'll go long down the line. He sort of, Anyway, you won't meet a bigger Mark fan. Love Mark.
Nathan says, what will the ruck situation be going forward? It's a really good question, Nathan. Reece is obviously out for a few weeks. Blitz was phenomenal coming in and taking up that. The flexibility and joy of having Mark Blitzers be able to go in the ruck is great, but we also love it when he doesn't have to ruck all the time because you can use him in multi-positions. Sam de Koning's an option.
I was going to say, I reckon if Henry comes back in, Colin Jasny comes back in, and hopefully Stewart, hopefully sooner rather than later, maybe it frees both of them up. They both play in the back line when they're not in the ruck, so that combo, I suppose. And hopefully it's a short hammy.
Yeah, let's hope so. Thank you for the questions. I really appreciate everyone who sent them in. Please keep them coming. Happy to answer as many as you can possibly send in. Hey, we better finish up, Meg, but really quickly just before we do, of course, the Cats take on the Giants 3:20 this Sunday at GMHBA Stadium. A team that has a good record down here. I know I don't like saying it all the time, but they do. And they have win-loss wise, they're not in their best form right now. But we know they can save something special for down here. It'll be a good game of footy. I've got, regardless of recent form, I've still got the Giants in that bracket as teams who can win the whole thing. So it'll be a great challenge for the Cats.
I'll leave it there. I know. And I hope this game every year we end the pod by saying, as long as Toby doesn't play too well, and then he plays pretty well. So just keep it under wraps, Toby.
Yes, he can play the game. All right, we hope to see lots and lots of Cats fans here on Sunday. Don't forget that curtain raiser's on as well for the VFL. But then 3:20 here for the Cats taking on the Giants. We will be back next week.
Yeah, we will.
Hopefully with a Meg's memo. No more la-di-da of you just having to...
oh, yeah, I know. I just had to have my cheese and biscuits.
Yes, fair enough. Yeah, fair enough.
My scones.
Thank you, Meg. Great to see you. We'll be back next week.
Lingy.